Our cast. Me. I'm the OP. ES. My insane ex-stepmom. Sis. My little sister. Dad. Me and Sis's dad. Desk lady. Has a brief appearance. Sis's grandma. Also has a brief appearance and some relevance. Our story. This took place a few years after the fated trip to England and France with the Huckleberries. If you read that story. Thankfully, I never did see them again. But oh, was I in for a bright future of Karens and crazies, if there's even a difference. For some backstory, my sister had a different mom than me. She was this bitter Hawaiian lady who hated me from the very moment she met me, simply because I wasn't her kid. She married my dad when I was about 4 or 5, and they had my 2 little sisters over the course of the early 2000s. I wasn't raised by my biological parents for undisclosed issues, and my biological mom isn't in my life at all. I thought I finally had a good mom figure in my life, but oh, was I wrong. Throughout our childhood, she constantly tried to get me in trouble with my dad for ridiculous things, like me playfully teasing my sisters like siblings always do. But ES would twist it and tell my dad I was bullying them. She would even go off at him with crazy things like, "How dare you give OP all your attention? Pay some attention to our kids." I only got to see my dad 2 or 3 times a year at that point. So, of course, he was going to shower me with attention the few times he got to see me. And he simply responded with, "I get to see our kids every day. I only get to see OP maybe twice a year." Skip to present day. ES and my dad have been divorced for many years at this point, for obvious reasons. This lady is nuts. I was in my 2nd year of college, uni for the British EU readers, and every other weekend I would go spend with my dad. My littlest sister's award ceremony was taking place this weekend. I was happy for her. She was on the all A's and B's honor roll, better than I did in school. Sis told me that her mom had taken the day off work to attend her award ceremony, along with her maternal grandparents. I had never been to her school before, and I didn't know where to go or what to look for, and traveled 2 hours from home to attend the ceremony. To this day, I don't remember why the grandparents ended up not coming. I didn't like ES one bit for obvious reasons, but I wanted to prove to her I was above her petty crap and act civil, unlike she did to my dad. She'd taken a restraining order out on him for no reason. I finally found the gym where the ceremony was taking place after wandering around the school for half an hour, and looked around the packed bleachers for ES. She's nowhere to be seen, nor are the grandparents. I sit down and watch the ceremony, cheering loudly for Sis and taking photos as she stands proud in front of the bleachers with her classmates, holding her honor roll certificate. The big smile on her face made my day, and I wanted to take her out for a celebratory lunch at the popular Southern chicken sandwich chain. If you live in the South, you know which place. The one that's closed on Sundays and has the waffle fries. After the conclusion of the ceremony, I waded through the crowd of middle schoolers and parents leaving the gym, trying to find Sis, which wasn't too hard. I hugged and congratulated her, and we both looked around for her family. Sis. I don't see Mom at all. Did you happen to see her when you sat down? Me. Nope. I'd know her face if I saw it. Both of us looked around but didn't see her. Meanwhile, all the other students were beginning to leave and head home with their parents. The school year was officially over. I think to myself, if Sis's mom isn't here to pick her up, she'll just be left here all alone. So I decided to take her myself. Big mistake in the end. We headed to the front desk, and I asked the lady if it was okay to take Sis, showing her my ID. Desk lady. You'll have to call her mother or anyone else on her visitors list and ask their permission. We can't just let you take her. Her mother and grandparents are on our list, so if you'd like to call one of them and sort it out, that will be fine. Fair enough. So Sis calls her mom. No answer. She called her mom nearly 10 times, and her calls weren't answered. So instead, Sis decides to call her grandparents. And after a few tries, the grandmother picks up and says that it's okay for me to take Sis out to lunch and then bring her home. It was then the desk lady let me take my sister. The grandmother had said that she would inform ES that I was bringing Sis home and not to worry. All was well. I took her to the chicken sandwich place and we were having a great time until my dad calls. Dad, where are you? ES just called me in a panic. She claimed she took Sis and she's calling the police. You need to take her home right now. You know how ES is. You don't want to start trouble with her. Sis is in tears at this point, almost shaking with anger. Sis, she's my sister. And where even was my mom? I didn't see her at all, and she wasn't even here to pick me up. I'm panicked myself. I didn't want to be arrested because I hadn't done anything wrong. I was also angry because at this point, me and Sis knew that her mom hadn't attended the ceremony, nor had her grandparents. We quickly throw away the rest of our food, and I start to drive Sis back to her mom's house. It's about a 30-minute drive, and I hope the driveway wouldn't be filled with police cars when I arrive. When I pulled up in the driveway, ES immediately came stomping out, in her pajamas. It was clear now this woman hadn't even planned on going to her own daughter's award ceremony. She angrily tapped on my window, and upholding my standards to not be petty, rolled it down to take on her wrath. ES. How dare you take my daughter without permission? I was worried sick about her. You've always been a bad kid, and who knows what you would have done with her. I called the police, and they're on their way. Sis. You took the day off to come to my awards ceremony, and you didn't even come. You told me you did, and that was the entire reason you're off work today. Nobody came to support me except for OP. She was the only one there for me, and I would have been left there all by myself if she hadn't taken me home. What were you even doing that was so much more important than coming to your own kid's awards ceremony? Sis is still sobbing. She didn't want me to get arrested. ES scoffed, her raging eyes still locked on me. But her excuses were as petty as ever. Her standard. ES. I was sleeping. I work all week to put food on the table for you kids, and I deserve a rest. I was angry, but I knew arguing with this woman would get me nowhere. She's petty, she's cold, and she's mean. She works all day as a manager at some place that rhymes with Crapper Barrel, and is never home to spend time with her two daughters, even treating her employees more like her kids than her actual kids. The least she could have done was show up to an hour-long awards ceremony. She still would have had all day to sleep afterwards. ES. Sis, get out of the car and go inside. Don't you ever talk back to me, or you'll be grounded. ES turns back to me as Sis opens the door and begins to slump up the driveway and into the house, still crying. I'm still silent, as I tend to freeze up when put on the spot, like a deer in headlights. My plans of being above her pettiness were crumbling, as I was clearly shrinking in the face of adversity. ES. Now you, get off my property, and I'll let you go this one time, but I don't ever want my children in your car again. You're a bad seed. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I knew this crazy woman was serious. I managed to get one shaky sentence out. Me. Sis tried to call you multiple times, and you wouldn't pick up. So she called your mother, and she said it was okay, and to go ahead and take Sis out to lunch and then bring her home. ES. I didn't pick up because I was asleep. And you take after your awful father. Of course I don't want my kids in the car with you. My mother did call and tell me, and that gave me all the reason to call the cops. You could have been kidnapping my baby. Yeah, like I would kidnap my own sister. Where would I even go? ES. Now go, before I change my mind and get the cops after you. She crosses her arms in a huff and kicks at the wheel of my car. I peel out of there as fast as I can and don't look back. I got an earful from my dad about not messing with this crazy woman, and that was that. And that's the story of how my crazy ex-stepmom nearly had me arrested for kidnapping my own sister. Sorry, no happy ending. The only joy I got was never seeing her again. Though a couple of years later now, Sis has said her mom has begun to get better. I hate to say it, and ES has no intention of supporting your sister. She probably knew that you were going to be there and wanted to make the excuse of you kidnapping her just so she could be justified in saying, I work all week, when she clearly just did not want to be anywhere near you. I'm so sorry about what happened, but I also realize karma will get that woman, and eventually people are going to know what type of person she is. Haha. So I got married last May, and I couldn't be happier with my husband. He's wonderful. A week before I was going to get married, I told my dad. He knew I was engaged, and he laughed at me. He hated my husband because he saw my husband as trailer trash. My husband grew up in a trailer, yes, but the park was more like a well-maintained neighborhood, and was clean, had an HOA, and kind neighbors. It was a regular subdivision that just happens to be made of mobile homes. Now, my dad saying that pissed me off for two reasons. One, my husband is not trailer trash. He was raised well-mannered, polite, kind, and chivalrous. Just because he didn't live in a big house didn't mean he was beneath me. Two, my dad grew up in a trailer. Yeah, my dad is kind of a hypocrite. He grew up poorer than poor in a trailer that was falling apart around him, and it became successful. So him judging my husband pissed me off. So when I told my dad I was getting married, he promptly kicked me out of the house. I was 18, but hadn't graduated high school yet. I had nothing for days until he put all my stuff on the curb, changed the locks, and watched me grab my crap and load it into my husband's truck. I had been told I wasn't allowed back, and my stepmom said even if invited, she wouldn't want to go. So, considering that my dad and stepmom normally have the same thought process, I just said duck it and didn't invite them. They didn't approve of my marriage, so I wasn't going to include them. I got married the day after I graduated high school and started my new life. I interacted with my dad briefly that July to get the title to my car. I finally paid it off, and then didn't interact with him again, until recently. I still have my father in my phone in case of emergency. I meant to text a friend and accidentally texted my dad, opening a line of communication I wasn't quite ready to have. I sucked it up though and texted back and forth with my dad. I checked on him, see how his therapy was going. He broke his neck, can't say why or how cause I'm not allowed, and he said he was doing okay. We then began to talk about how we left our relationship off, and I apologized for cutting him out of my life. But that led into my dad getting frustrated for me not inviting him to my wedding. I told him that I figured he didn't want to go because of everything he said, and my stepmom said. I admitted that I probably messed up not inviting him regardless, but he was still frustrated. My dad then proceeded to tell me that I had owed him an invitation, that he had spent so much money trying to get me in his custody that the least I could have done was invite him to my damn wedding. This kinda irritated me, but I just left the conversation at that. He spent all that money to get custody, then kicked you to the curb for loving someone who he didn't approve of. You don't owe him a damn thing. Parents are supposed to raise their kids. That takes money and is a given. Spending money on your kid in any form does not automatically give you the rights to their adult life. If you consider inviting him, I think you should first require him to apologize to both you and your fiancé. You for being so heartless and throwing you out, and your fiancé for calling him trailer trash when he himself was in a seemingly worse situation growing up. I am 16 female. My parents divorced when I was 3. My dad got remarried when I was 5. My mom died when I was 8. Note, they have never erased my mom from my life, and I have a ton of pictures and things from her. I am really close to my stepmom. She has always been a mom to me, and when my mom died, she has really stepped up. She was the one who held me when I cried, who stayed up with me when I was sick, and who has pretty much done everything for me. I also weirdly look like her, more than I look like my dad, so people aren't aware she is my stepmom. She had 2 twin sons who are a year older than me, and then they had my little sister when I was 7. The 4 of us are real siblings, and have never used the term step or half. We look like a nuclear family, especially since my brother's dad has never been in their lives. Recently, I learned that my stepmom was my dad's affair partner, and that he divorced my mom because he was cheating on her. I absolutely blew up on them, and threatened to move to California to be with my mom's family, and completely self-destruct, until they had no choice to go. I told my dad he has to divorce her, and have started to call her by her first name. I am so upset that they lied to me and betrayed my mother. I hate them for taking me away from her and having split custody before she died when their own selfish reasons. I am so angry at myself for respecting my stepmom and dad so much. My siblings are mad at me for trying to get my parents to divorce because I think my dad is seriously considering doing it because he doesn't want to lose me. They have both apologized to me, and my stepmom has been begging for forgiveness, and that she loves me more than I will ever know, and is sorry, and if there is anything to fix her mistake. She has been begging me not to hate her. I don't want my siblings to hate me, so I don't know if I'm the a-hole for blowing up the whole family when she has been nothing but good to me. I am also 16, so I only have 2 years left. So am I the a-hole for trying to get them to divorce? Edit. I told my parents that I don't want them to get divorced, but I want to leave still. I apologized to my siblings, and my brothers hugged me and told me that it was okay, and that they are mad, but my sister still is. Edit 2. Turns out my twin stepbrothers are in fact my father's sons. They have known for years, but have kept this info from me because it would have made me upset. I am the only kid there not related to both parents. I feel really sick. I think you need to seek some counseling, for yourself and also as a family. There is much you likely don't understand about your dad and stepmom. Relationships are complicated, and while I understand that you are angry and feel duped, what you're doing is coming from a place of fear.